We have all felt it. That awful, sinking feeling when you feel like you're losing control. But what if that feeling isn't some kind of personal weakness? What if it's actually a specific brain response, one that we can understand and maybe even manage? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We're breaking down the science of control and figuring out how to get it back. I mean, have you ever had one of those days, or maybe one of those weeks, where it just feels like no matter what you do, life is just happening to you? You're not driving, you're just a passenger, completely overwhelmed and just trying to hang on.
Well, here's the thing. That feeling, it's not you failing. It's actually a hardwired neurological response. And the cool part is, once you really understand the mechanics behind it, you can actually start to rewire it. So let's talk about where this feeling of powerlessness even comes from. Because it's not just, a bad mood. It is a specific psychological phenomenon, and it has a name and a really fascinating, if kind of dark, origin story.
Our story starts not in some high-tech brain lab, but way back in 1967. It all begins with a pretty landmark experiment that would totally change how we think about control, how we think about depression, and ultimately resilience.
The concept they stumbled upon is called learned helplessness, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a state where, after you face an awful situation that you can't control over and over again, you basically learn to stop trying, even when an escape route opens up right in front of you.
A psychologist named Martin Seligman came up with this really clever two-part experiment to see this whole thing in action. It started with some dogs in harnesses, and it ended in a thing called a shuttle box. Okay, so check out this setup. You've got three groups of dogs. Group one, they're the control group. They just hang out in a harness for a bit and then get licko. No big deal. Group two, they received mild shocks, but, and this is key, they could press a lever to make it stop. They had control. But then you have group three. They got the same shocks, but their lever, it did nothing. For them, the pain was completely and totally inescapable. And that one difference changes everything.
So, what do you think happened next? All three groups of dogs were put into a new setup, this box where they could easily escape a shock just by hopping over a low barrier. The first two groups, the ones who either had control or had no trauma, they figured it out almost instantly. But group three, the ones who learned that their actions didn't matter, they just didn't even try.
This quote from the actual study is it's chilling. They didn't try to find a way out. They just laid down and took it. They had literally learned to be helpless. That one experience of having zero control completely rewired how they responded to a brand new threat. They took that feeling of powerlessness from one situation and just applied it to everything. Now that was 1967. Fast forward to today, and we can actually see what's happening inside our own brains when we feel that same sense of learned helplessness, that total feeling of chaos. And listen, this is not some rare thing. The American Psychological Association found that 3 out of 4 of us, that's 75%, experience seriously high levels of stress when we feel powerless in a situation. This is a fundamental part of being human. So what is going on up there? Well, think of it like a tug of war inside your head. On one side of the rope is your prefrontal cortex. That's the calm, rational, planning part of your brain. But when you feel that loss of control, the amygdala, your brain's ancient alarm system, just yanks on that rope with all its might. It completely hijacks the system, floods you with stress hormones, and basically shuts down rational thought. It's all survival instinct. And this has massive real-world consequences, especially at work. I mean, look at this data from the Harvard Business Review. It's really striking. The difference is night and day. When employees feel like they have some control, they're way more engaged. But when they feel powerless, their risk of burnout just skyrockets. So having a sense of control isn't a luxury. It's a psychological necessity. Okay, so we're caught in this neurological trap, right? We feel helpless, our brain freaks out, we get burned out. It feels like a very modern problem. But what if the answer isn't modern at all? What if it's ancient? This is the big question, isn't it? How do we break out of that cycle? How do we stop being like those dogs in the third group? How do we quiet down the amygdala and hand the controls back to our rational brain? Believe it or not, the answer comes from a philosophy that was popular in ancient Greece and Rome more than 2,000 years ago. It's basically an operating system for the mind, designed specifically to build resilience in a world that's always going to be chaotic and uncertain. And that philosophy is Stoicism. And no, this is not about being an emotionless robot with a stiff upper lip. That's a total modern misconception. Real Stoicism is a practical toolkit. It's for thriving, not by controlling the world around you, but by mastering your response to it. And the absolute core of this whole toolkit is one incredibly powerful idea: the dichotomy of control. It's a simple mental exercise. You just sort everything that happens into two buckets. Bucket 1, things you can actually control. Bucket 2, things you can't. The huge Stoic insight is that almost all of our stress and anxiety comes from us trying to control what's in that second bucket.
All right, let's put it all together. How do we take this ancient wisdom, mix it with what we know about modern neuroscience, and actually take back our own minds? And this is where it gets really, really cool. Look at this chart. These ancient Stoic techniques are basically the direct ancestors of some of our most effective modern therapies. The idea that our beliefs about things, not the things themselves, cause our emotions, that's the entire foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Separating your sense of self from your thoughts, that's a core idea in ACT. This isn't just dusty old philosophy, it's literally the blueprint for modern psychotherapy. So what can you do right now? Here's a simple 3-step cycle. First, you focus. Constantly ask yourself, is this in my control? If the answer's no, you practice letting it go. Second, you reframe. Start seeing uncertainty not as a threat, but as an opportunity. And third, you act. Set and achieve tiny micro goals. Every little win, no matter how small, sends a powerful signal back to your brain that says, hey, I am in control.
And that really is the biggest takeaway here. Real control isn't about trying to make the world a perfectly predictable place, because that's impossible. It's about building up your internal strength, your mental flexibility, so you can handle the chaos with confidence. It's about mastering your response, not the event itself.
So I'll leave you with a challenge to make this real. Forget about the traffic, your boss, the weather, all the stuff you can't control. What is one internal judgment, one reaction, just one tiny thing that is 100% within your power to change, starting right now?